Hi, my name is Hayden, and I'm in sunny Vietnam, where the seafood is great. There's all kinds of creative, fun outlets for the tourist. But to be honest, a lot of tourists coming here have only one thing on their minds, especially tourists from the United States, or England, or Australia, and that would be the Vietnam War. So what exactly did you see in Hanoi while you were traveling there last week?
The thing that was probably most impactful and startling to me was going to the place that they've always called Hanoi Hilton. They have a different name for it, but that's what the Americans called it. And it was a prison, a very barbaric prison that the French had built 100 years earlier to house the political prisoners, the protesters against the French government who had come here to colonize. But then, when the Vietnam War started, that's where they would put the American pilots.
Oh, yes.
And one of our senators, Senator McCain, who ran for president, was there, I think, for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And he came back and could not even lift his arms above his shoulders because most nights they would have him hanging all night long, you know, from his wrist.
Yeah.
And so everything was disjointed. And so to see how they treated the prisoners and how they treated the Americans, you know, it was pretty powerful moment.
As a person who has the worldview of a Christian, what were some of the takeaways that you experienced going in such a dark and difficult, uncomfortable kind of place?
It just shows you, you know, the depravity of man. You know, to go into that prison and see the guillotine. I mean, they killed people a lot of different ways, but here's this French, I think, a French-made guillotine. I think that's where it was invented. And so they had a basket where the head would fall, and they had another basket where they put the rest of the body. And, you know, I just thought, how many different ways can we invent to, you know, to kill each other in such a brutal, immoral, unjust way, and for what reason? And so it just shows you the darkness, the depravity of our own hearts, of mankind. And without God, without Jesus Christ, we're just doomed to just basically destroy each other and destroy ourselves, basically. I registered for the draft of the Vietnam War, but I was too young. They were already bringing soldiers back, so I was not drafted. My school, I wasn't a good student. I probably would have been drafted. But I knew of people that were going to the war, and I knew that we were losing a lot of men, and I knew that there were a lot of turmoil in our country for and against the war. Lots of unrest and protesting going on. A lot of the music that I was listening to was protesting Vietnam, and so. But I knew it was a very, very turbulent time, and everyone was asking, why are we in this war? And we really are still asking big questions.
So I'm here in Hanoi enjoying a nice café sữa đá, which is iced coffee with milk in Kong coffee. Kong means communist, and it's a pretty hot new coffee shop that's trying to compete with Starbucks and other coffee shops around here, which there's quite a few in Hanoi. But this one is interesting because it's war themed. And a lot of times when you look at the decor and you look at the things that are on the walls, we see that the war brings about this sense of nostalgia and something noble in a lot of ways. Like people remember the times when we were more industrious and more working together for a really worthy cause. And I think some of that has been lost, and so they can recapture some of that in the memories of war. But of course we all know war is no picnic for anyone, and it tends to bring out the worst in everyone. And so without being too romanticized, let's go and have a look at one of the museums and just see kind of what some of the memories of the war might look like. Vietnam has been at war for thousands of years with the Thai, the Cham, the Khmer, certainly the Chinese, and even the Mongols. But most of the world, when they think of the word war, have two images in mind: World War II and Vietnam. Both of these wars affected these lands. World War II, the Vietnamese would think of as their war of independence because it loosened the grip of France on their country and allowed them to go for independence. However, the war with the United States was a much messier affair. Well, my first impression of this place seems like a lot of old black and white photos on the walls with a lot of stuff to read. And of course, I know this would be true, but it's mostly laid out like sort of a lecture in a communist university class. But then again, we already have our side of the story. There are a lot more people here who want to learn about it. I see tourists and even like Vietnamese students who are here on a Saturday to study all these lessons that are found in the university. But beneath all the little details, I can't miss what my friend had already concluded. We sure have invested a lot of money in tech toward our own self-destruction. And I'm thinking of something written in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes. Don't learn too much. Why should you all destroy yourselves? Surely there is not a righteous man on earth who does good and never sins. There's another passage in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 10 that's even more foreboding. It says, the earth and skies are destined for fire. So then, what sort of people should you be? The conclusion, we should be righteous and patterned after God. Should, but how? So the Bible has these secrets of like how to live in peace, even though we visit places like this, which can be a little depressing. My walk through the Vietnam Hanoi Museum of Military History lasts exactly 1 hour, And it leaves me feeling a little more blue than red. Well, the verdict is still kind of out on how the Vietnamese view the war. When I look around the museum, I see some students doing reports, interviews, and filming themselves as well. I see a lot of people with their kids, but it's just kind of unclear to me how much they internalize the terrors of the past. Just to kind of give some perspective, just across the street is a pretty fun kids park. Everyone is having fun. But if people really stop and think about the war and what it did, they will have perhaps some kind of a perspective on the brevity of life and the value of life. So as I get ready to leave the country after this really short trip, I'm reminded that Vietnam has a lot of pleasurable experiences, a lot of joy, laughter, and fun, and a lot of good food. But as I think and reflect on it, I do realize there is a verse in the Bible, in the ancient book of Ecclesiastes, that says this: it's better to be in a house of mourning than in a house of feasting and in a house of laughter. So as we tour around and go to different places and museums, I'm reminded that there can be a lot to learn from places that reflect darker experiences of war and tragedy. So, so until the next trip, I will see you back at home with Marci.